My name is Don Winkler. I am 21 years old. I'm a musician and a filmmaker, and I am also your friendly neighborhood trans woman. This first question, what does being trans mean to you? I've always been the kind of person to want to put things in different perspectives. I feel like there's a lot of things that get said time and time again and they kind of lose their meaning. One thing that you hear a lot of trans people say in particular is like that we're trapped inside the wrong body. And when I was younger, I never really related to that. I always felt like people would hear that and just think that that's crazy. And unfortunately, a lot of people do. But the older I've gotten, I've realized that there's really not a better way that I can explain it personally. And to clarify, I'm not of the belief that you have to have dysphoria in order to be trans, so not everybody is going to feel that way. Everything's on a spectrum. And to the people who might deny that, there are literally people on this planet who are born with both reproductive systems, which goes to show that not only is gender not binary, but sex isn't even binary. There are so many neurological and physiological factors that go into it that have been horribly oversimplified to the point that people tend to conflate sex and gender. They're not the same thing. And it just kind of shoehorns people into one of two boxes. Advice that I would give to young trans people is to make trans friends, whether that be in person, online, as many as you can, get as many different perspectives as you can. It'll help you realize a lot about yourself, as well as some of the problematic things that might still be like seated in your subconscious. Because like I said, I used to be, kind of wanted to be one of the good ones, so to speak. And there was a lot of problematic opinions that I had surrounding the identities of trans people as a trans person myself. And the more and more trans people you meet, you will learn more and more about yourself. After I had really found like a good niche of trans people on TikTok, and made a lot of friends on there, I thought I had myself figured out pretty well. And then this last December, I ended up making a really good friend who's probably my best friend at this point. And they put so many things into perspective for me, just sharing their experiences from when they were younger. Things that I had never really even thought about. And I found a lot of new stuff about myself. This next question, how many people in the US identify as trans? I thought that was an interesting question. I could find the statistics, I'm sure. But the reality is the number is probably a lot higher because those statistics are only going to account for the people that are openly trans. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who don't feel like they're in a safe environment, and so they don't disclose that part of their identity. And while there are a lot of loudmouth people out there, such as myself, who like to make their voices heard and share their experiences as trans people and better educate the general public about what trans people go through, there are also a lot of people out there who don't really want to take on that burden, and they shouldn't have to. So they just kind of want to live their lives, and chances are you've interacted with a lot more trans people in your life than you're even aware of. Why do people tend to have a hard time differentiating sex versus, or sexuality versus gender identity? I think that this has a lot to do with how societal norms affect our perception of others as well as ourselves. I came out as bisexual when I was really young, and then as I got older and started to come to terms with the fact that I was trans, the thought of being romantic with women made me really uncomfortable. After I'd been on hormones for a couple of years, I was able to think clearly enough that I realized that it wasn't because I don't find myself attracted to women, it's because I always thought of myself as a man in those situations, and that made me really uncomfortable. I remember shortly after I came out, a family friend was like, so you're gay, so you feel like you should be a woman. And I'm like, no, what was going on was I was a woman who is very insecure, mostly due to the fact that I was trans, and unfortunately that meant that I was very dependent on validation from men, which unfortunately is an experience that a lot of trans women have regardless of their sexuality.